Hi everyone, welcome to Sunny Day Discussions. I am Sunny Day, and it has been several months since I've posted a video. I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I had decided to go back to school, get my bachelor's in psychology. Then I spoke to my financial advisor and realized that I wouldn't be out of debt until I was in my 80s. So I couldn't strap my kids with that in case something happens to me before that. So I opted to come back to YouTube and try my hand at political commentating again. So that's how it is. Happy 2024. Hope you all had great holidays. We're in for a tumultuous year, unfortunately, I believe. So today I want to talk to you all about the issues at the border and how no politician is actually really trying to fix it. Democrats are trying to get more funding there for more technology, more manpower. But Republicans, as much as they like to bitch and moan about the border, are fighting it every step of the way. In fact, here's a quote from Representative Troy Nehls of Texas. He says, "Let me tell you, I am not willing to do too damn much right now to help a Democrat and to help Joe Biden's approval rating. I will not help the Democrats try to improve this man's dismal approval ratings. I'm not going to do it. Why would I?" So that's just another example of how the Republican Party is putting partisan politics over the well-being of its constituents and of the American people in general. They need the border crisis because every election cycle, that is exactly what they use to scare Republican voters into voting for them. They say, like, the whole shtick right now is that the wide open border, that Biden opened the border and people are just streaming in. But that's just not the case. In fact, there's very little that has been changed from Trump's policies to Biden's policies. So the bill that the Republicans are refusing to vote for at this point, or not wanting to vote for, provides $19.934 billion, $3.103 billion above the requested amount, $2.104 billion for additional border wall, $496.2 million to fund 22,000 Border Patrol agents, and $305.4 million for additional inspection technology. That sounds pretty good. It's a step in the right direction. The whole system needs revamped. We need more immigration judges, all of that. But now let's go through the differences that have occurred since Biden took office. So starting with Trump, in March of 2020, at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, Trump invoked what was called Title 42, meant as a public health measure. This allowed U.S. officials to expel all immigrants, including those seeking asylum at the border. When Biden took office, he unfortunately defended this bill and the continuation of it. Over 2.28 million were expelled between January 2021 and March 2023. On May 11th, Title 42 expired. At this point, the U.S. unveiled an approach that encouraged legal pathways while also implementing strict penalties for those who cross illegally, such as they opened regional processing centers in Latin America aimed at helping migrants apply to come to the U.S. and expanded access to an app, CBP1, that migrants can use to schedule asylum appointments. And the people who cross illegally will be deported, barred from re-entering the U.S. for at least 5 years, and presumed ineligible for asylum. There were no consequences under Title 42, so in that aspect, Biden's border policy is stricter than Trump's. Okay, now back to Trump. In January of 2019, he implemented a policy officially known as Migrant Protection Protocols, or MPP, that forced asylum seekers to wait in Mexico for their U.S. immigration hearings. Approximately 70,000 people were returned under this policy, left for months at a time, and preyed upon by gangs. An estimated 1,500 migrants were kidnapped, sexually assaulted, or abused after returning to Mexico. Biden, on day one, moved to suspend this practice. The DHS moved to officially terminate the policy in June. A Trump-appointed federal court judge in Texas found that the administration had improperly canceled the policy, and it was restarted in December of 2021. In June of 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court actually sided with the Biden administration and allowed the policy to be terminated. Trump had a zero-tolerance policy that allowed the U.S. authorities to deport adults who illegally crossed the border. In some cases, parents were deported without their children, who were placed in government custody. Between 2017 and 2021, at least 3,900 children were separated from their families. Biden immediately reversed that practice, and some families have been reunited, but not all. In December of 2021, Biden moved to stop holding families in ICE detention facilities. So Biden's border policies are more humane, but also a bit more strict. And so this whole wide open border claim that the Republicans have is just flat out false. And they're using it just as a scare tactic to get you to vote for them, because they're claiming only Republicans are strong on the border. And their solution, allegedly, is to either build the wall, which would cost an insurmountable amount of money, or to shut the border entirely. And that just goes against everything that America is in its acceptance of immigrants. In fact, we're all immigrants except for the Native Americans. So, yeah, that's one of the lies that Republicans like to spew everywhere. And unfortunately, their constituents don't like to look into it themselves and find out the facts and the truth. So they believe that the border is wide open and we're just allowing criminals to come across the border. Not families, but criminals. Now let's talk about Trump's attempt to say he has presidential immunity. So Trump's team argued to a federal appeals court on last Tuesday, that a president cannot be prosecuted, even for assassinating a rival or selling military secrets, unless they were first impeached and convicted by Congress. So the Trump attorneys argued that permitting Smith's case to continue would trigger a republic-shattering cycle of recrimination in which future presidents would reflexively prosecute their predecessors from opposing parties. This argument directly contradicts an argument previously floated by Trump, stating that to prosecute a president who was acquitted in a Senate impeachment hearing or trial would violate the double jeopardy clause of the Fifth Amendment, as well as arguing that the former president enjoys blanket immunity for actions he took in office that can be overcome only in the event of a conviction in the Senate. So during one of Trump's impeachment trials, even, his lawyer argued that maybe they shouldn't be doing this. I think it was the January 6th one. That maybe we shouldn't be impeaching and attempting to prosecute because we can do that after he's out of office. Again, that's three different contradicting arguments for presidential immunity. And then Trump's threat that, well, if I don't get immunity, neither does Biden. Of course not. If there is a president in office who is committing crimes, they need to be held accountable. There should be no, in fact, I'm against the can't prosecute a sitting president rule. Not a law, but a rule. If a president is in his seat and does something while in office, they absolutely should be held accountable. Now let's get into a news story that I think should be covered far more in the media that I'm not seeing very many places. And it has to do with a place in Jackson, Mississippi. 215 bodies were discovered buried in unmarked graves behind a jail. Families of the deceased were not notified that they had deceased. Some of the grave sites were only identified by a number or a metal rod, raising concerns about the lack of transparency and respect in handling the deceased. The families are calling for a federal investigation, and this all came to light with the death of Dexter Wade in March of 2023. A police officer ran him over, killing him. His family was not informed, and he was buried without his family's knowledge. To make matters even worse, Wade had ID on him in his pocket. The ME claims that they gave the lead detective the ID. The detective claims that he called the ME without receiving an answer and did not pursue it further. Incompetence or miscommunication. I tend to believe that it's more incompetence. At the burial site, vultures flew overhead. The bodies were buried in shallow graves without embalming, leading to a stench that attracted scavengers. The families, again, like I said, were not notified and believed their loved ones to still be missing. This goes beyond race, as both white and black individuals were buried in the same manner. Activist Arthur Reed, attorney Ben Crump, and attorney Dennis Week are all calling for a federal investigation to uncover the truth as to why those bodies were buried in a pauper's grave behind the jail. And to make matters even worse, the families are being asked to pay a $250 fee to claim the bodies of their loved ones. Now, let's go back to Dexter Wade. His body sat in a county morgue unclaimed for months. Betterson Wade, his mom, officially reported him missing on March 14th, 2023. Days after he went missing, she repeatedly called the police department to ask if they had any information. She emailed pictures of Dexter to the police, requested that they show his photo on TV. It was not until August of 2023, when a new investigator took over, that the family was notified of his demise. It took 2 more months to locate his body. Now, there's a woman named Marquita Moore, who was notified of the death of her older brother, Mario Terrell Moore, age 40, from an online article revealing cases of 24 homicide victims in which the Jackson police had failed to notify the public or the families. All 24 were from a single year. Moore later learned that her brother Mario had been bludgeoned to death, wrapped in a tarp, and left on the street on February 2nd, 8 months before the article was published. In other words, 8 months before she found out her brother was dead. Again, his body laid in the morgue, unclaimed for months. On December 4th, the family of Jonathan David Hankins, 39 years old, learned of his death from news outlets. Hankins was reported missing in June of 2022, nearly a year before the 2 previously mentioned victims. Hankins was discovered dead by the authorities just days after he went missing on May 23, 2022, in a hotel room, a suspected overdose. The investigators were easily able to identify him and verify his identity, and again, the family was not notified. As far as I can tell, none of the families were notified of their loved ones' deaths. I don't even know what to say to that. There definitely needs to be a federal investigation into this police department and why these bodies were dealt and handled in the way they were, why the families were not notified, and why they decided to bury them behind the police department. I don't understand the logic, the reasoning, the mentality, the sheer lack of compassion 4 people that this police department displayed. But I'm not surprised, because this just is another display of the contempt that law enforcement has for the people that they are supposedly there to serve. And it just, again, goes to show that this country needs to have a whole revamping of its policing. It needs to be better trained, psychologically evaluated better. So many things. I could make a whole new video on that. But I don't want this to be too long. It's already kind of getting there. So I just want to say thanks for watching. I hope you like what I do, and I hope you subscribe. Vote. No matter how big, how small, how inconsequential the election is, your vote matters, and read everything you can get your hands on. So I thank you, and I'll see you next time.